Hello students, today we will discuss about cell division. Cell division. Before beginning cell division, let us in brief talk about the cell. What is cell? As we all know, it is the structural and functional unit of life. It is this cell which performs all vital functions. It performs all vital functions. And one more important thing of cell is that it is capable of reproduction. Now, when we are talking about this cell, there was a cell theory which was given by Sheldon and Schwann. What the cell theory stated? What did this cell theory states? This cell theory states one of the postulate of the cell theory was that cell arises from pre-existing cell. This was one of the postulate. Cell arises from pre-existing cell. How? Like this is a cell, it divides into two and give rise to two new daughter cells. These are, what are these? Two new daughter cells. Okay? And this procedure in which a cell divides to form two cells is cell division. Clear? This is cell division. But the system of cell division is not so simple. It involves number of steps. So we study cell division under a topic which is called as cell cycle. What is this cell cycle? Cell cycle is defined as in procedure in which there is orderly sequence of events by which the cell duplicates its content and divides into two daughter cell is referred to as cell cycle. What it is? It is orderly sequence of events by which the cell duplicates and form two daughter cells. Clear? This is cell cycle. Now this cell cycle is divided into two broad categories. Cell cycle is divided into two broad categories. First is the non-dividing phase and the second is the dividing phase. Okay, so firstly we'll discuss about this. We'll discuss about non-dividing phase. This non-dividing phase is called as the interphase. Interphase. No cell division takes place in interphase. This phase involves only the preparation for the division. Here the cell prepares itself for division. Okay? Here the cell prepares itself from division. This interphase is further divided into three parts. What are the three parts? The G1 stage, the S phase and the G2 phase. Okay, all these are the phases of interphase. Now we'll discuss it one by one. First is the G1 phase. Okay, now what happens in G1 phase? This G1 phase is also called as first growth phase or first gap phase. Clear? This G1 phase is called as the first growth phase or the first gap phase. Clear? It is of longest duration. It is of longest duration and the duration is 12 hours. Clear? What happens in this G1 phase is there is synthesis of RNA and protein which are required for division. It is the G1 phase where the cell decides whether it will undergo division or not. Okay, so three things can happen in the G1 phase. Three things will happen in the G1 phase. First, the cell will undergo division, okay, or it will not undergo division, okay. And the third and the important thing is the G0 phase of G1. This G0 phase is delayed G1 or arrested G1. The G0 phase is the delayed G1 or the arrested G1, which means the cell has an arrest over its division. Okay. Now coming on to the S phase. As the name suggests, S phase also called as the synthesis phase. The star point here is that duplication of DNA takes place in the S phase. This is the most important line, that duplication of DNA takes place in the S phase. Okay, likewise, the duration of the S phase is around 6 to 8 hours. Duration is 6 to 8 hours. Okay, and children, don't get confused. This is the part of G1 phase. Okay, duration of S phase is 6 to 8 hours. Now coming on to the third is and one more important thing of the S phase is, important part of the S phase is, once the cell enters the S phase, it is bound to undergo division. Then there is no turning back for the cell. If it enters into the S phase after the G1 phase, it will undergo division. Now, the third is the G2 phase. What happens in G2 phase is, it is called as second gap phase or second growth phase. Okay, it is the stage just prior to the division phase, so also called as pre-mitotic phase. What happens in this G2 phase is, in G2 phase, division or duplication of organelles takes place, and the duration of the G2 phase is 3 to 4 hours. After this G2 phase, the cell enters into the dividing phase. After the G2, the cell enters into the dividing phase. Okay, this phase is called as M phase or the mitotic phase. It is the phase in which the actual division of the cell takes place. The duration is just 1 hour. Okay. It is the M phase or the mitotic phase. It is the M phase or the mitotic phase in which the cell divide. Now, this cell division can be of two types. Either it can be mitosis or it can be meiosis. What is mitosis and what is meiosis? This mitosis is called as equational division and meiosis is reductional division. Okay, this mitosis and meiosis we'll deal in detail in our later lectures. Okay, now after all this I will draw a cell cycle. It will be more clear to you after this. This is a cell cycle. Now it is divided like this. Draw a more straight line like this. Now this is the G1 phase, this is the S phase, this is the G2 phase and this is the M phase. This G1 phase takes around 12 hours. Okay, this S phase takes place in around 6 to 8 hours. G2 phase takes place around 3 to 4 hours and the M phase takes just 1 hour. Okay, the actual division which is taking place takes place in this M phase. Here the cell divides and from G1 to G2 phase it is interphase. G1, S and G2 are parts of interphase and the M phase division takes place and the division can be either mitosis or it can be meiosis. Okay, and here also we'll mark G0. This is G0. What was G0? It was delayed or arrested G1. Okay, this is all for the day. In the next lecture we will discuss about the mitosis.